حبوبي بالوصال نعم علي وجد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وصحابته أجمعين. اللهم إني نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على تمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء إلى الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله ومرضاته وقربه وثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. يا الله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا ومولانا محمد. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته. So this is a less technical part of the book of knowledge, but no less important. If anything, it's more important because of the topic, which is, I think in your pack, I think it says, what does it say? The etiquettes of a teacher or something, right? And following on from yesterday, where we have this idea of conveying ideas from Arabic into English, that the description that the Imam puts forward in this section is he refers to the teacher as al-murshid al-muallim. Now, why is this important, this phrase, al-murshid al-muallim? Because if it was just a teacher, it would be just the word muallim. In Arabic, the word for teacher is, one of the words is muallim or mudarris. The word muallim is serving as an adjective to the word murshid, meaning the focus is not on muallim. Muallim is the word for the teacher. So we should expect the section to be, what should we look for in a teacher? Or what are the responsibilities of a teacher? He's not using the word teacher. The word teacher is being used as an adjective to another word, which seems to be more important than the idea of imparting knowledge. And that word is murshid. And as we know, murshid is a quality of guiding people. In this sense, guiding someone to Allah. So the person that we should be looking to take knowledge from, the primary quality that the Imam is alluding to here is that they should have the quality of irshad. They should be upright themselves such that they can cause uprightness in other people. Hence, the one that we should search for is the murshid before we look for the muallim. Not the other way around. Let's look for a teacher and let's just hedge our bets and hope he's okay or she's okay. No, it's like Sayyidina Ibn Abdullah bin Mubarak. What did he say? He said, إِنَّ هَذَا الْعِلْمِ دِينٌ فَانْظُرُوا مِمَّنْ تَأْخُذُونَ دِينَكُمْ. That this knowledge is your deen. So look well into who you take your knowledge from. And so by titling this section in this way, the Imam's clearly placing the emphasis on a core aspect, a core idea that we have to focus on when looking for teachers. And just to make that point, even clearer, it's better in our tradition to take knowledge from someone who may be less knowledgeable but more upright than taking knowledge from someone who the opposite. No, has more knowledge but has no or compromised qualities of irshad. Right? If you think about it, it's a very counterintuitive way of thinking about knowledge in a modern sense. There's no regard for what the qualities of a teacher may be. This is a person, the expert in the field, and it doesn't matter what their personal qualities are like. Right? If they're upright, morally responsible, virtuous individuals. No regard for that. That's also because there's a disconnect in modern education. As you know, in modern education, ever since from the early 19th century onwards, when universities became universities in the way that we know them today. Prior to that, they were mainly theological seminaries, wherein even in Europe, the focus was on understanding the core aspects of the Christian tradition, the theological tradition. But when they became research universities and post-enlightenment, what happens is that they've created a disconnect between the idea of instructing someone in knowledge and instructing them in character. No longer is it the responsibility of the teacher to impart guidance. So if anyone's a teacher here or works in education, can probably tell us that it's if it's ever spoken about, it's in some secondary way, that you should have some whilst you're within the school premises, you should behave in a certain way. Right? And as long as whatever you do outside doesn't affect what we see inside, we're okay, because you're not expected to impart any good character to the students. But in our tradition, there's an intrinsic link between uprightness and imparting knowledge. Now, the Imam, because in being in this teacher-student relationship, he always gives us these scenarios to make things a little bit easier for us to understand. He said acquiring knowledge has 4 aspects that are similar to acquiring wealth. He says that there's 4 stages that a person goes through. That someone is either what he refers to as a muktasib. Muktasib is someone who is going out into the world to earn money. The bank is empty right now, and I need to earn some money to top up my bank balance. And from this stage, from the stage of being a muktasib, i.e. someone who's going out into the world to earn money, you move to the stage of being a ghani, which is, as a result of acquiring wealth, you attain a degree of independence, because ghina in Arabic means to be independent. And all of the scholars, they tell us that every Muslim should want to attain a state of ghina, by which they mean that you should try to not rely on people for your means. Of course, we're always going to rely on people socially, and the social bonds and spiritual bonds, and we rely on each other spiritually, of course we do. But economically, we should try to be as independent as we can. Why? Because not being independent economically can compromise who we are. And la samahallah put us into situations that we would end up doing things that we ordinarily wouldn't want to do. So you move from being a muktasib to being a ghani, wherein we acquire a sense of independence. Subsequent to which is the stage of being a muntafi'. And a muntafi' is that not only does one now have wealth, but actually uses wealth to benefit himself. Which is really interesting, because it means that one can have wealth but not actually benefit from it. For instance, you can have wealth and you can just leave it in the bank and you're not using it. Or you can have wealth and spend it on things that are not actually benefiting you. You think they are, but they're not. Because we have to really clarify what we mean by the word nafa', benefit. Buying the second car, is that a benefit? Buying the 5th pair of walking shoes, is that you can afford it, for sure you can, but are you benefiting from that? The second house, the holiday home, is it a benefit? If we try to understand what benefit means in relation to wealth, a lot of people will actually tell us that benefit in relation to having wealth is buying time. It's a quality that we all need. And Imam Ghazali, in his one of the later books of the Ihya, in fact says exactly that. If you are a person of means, you should employ people to work and do the things that you don't have to be doing, because it's going to free up your time. Because not only are you creating work for someone else, and then he says, but you should treat them well, and this is how you should interact with them, that's a separate thing, but you should go out there and quote unquote buy help. so you can free up your own time to do other things. In fact, it's if you look at it in that way, it seems almost odd that we don't do that we have wealth and yet we spend it on things which are not really benefiting us. And so in this sense, the Imam is telling us something really interesting, that you can have wealth and not benefit from it, either by keeping it in a bank, or you have wealth and you're not benefiting by it even though you're spending it. There's a very specific understanding of what benefit means here. And the last one is what the Imam refers to as mutafaddil. Now, before we get to this, let's just go back. The muktasib is the one who's acquiring money, i.e. acquiring knowledge. We start from a state of no knowledge and we set off on a path of knowledge. That's muktasib. Then we move to the stage of ghina, that now I didn't know how to pray. I know how to pray now. I didn't know what the ahkam of fasting are. I know now. I have a business. I didn't know how to conduct my business. I do know now. So now you've moved to the state of independence. But have you moved to the state of benefit if you never pray? You have the knowledge. You don't need a teacher to teach you anymore. But have you actually done anything with that knowledge? You've opened the business and you've learned how to conduct your trade according to the sacred law, but you disregard it. It doesn't matter. So we've reached the second stage of ghina, but we may have not, la samahallah, moved to the third stage of intifa, to benefit from the knowledge that we have. The fourth stage is what the Imam refers to as mutafaddil. It's where now what you have begins to take expression outside of you. And this stage is a natural consequence of the third stage. Because to properly benefit from your knowledge is to share it with others. It doesn't make there's no concept of having knowledge and to say that I'm benefiting from my knowledge if you're not sharing it. Which, if you go back to the money analogy, that if you have money and you're not sharing it for benefit, i.e. helping the poor and the needy, and someone is, God forbid, in need of clothes or food or whatever it is, and you think, miskeen, you know. That's it. But it doesn't force you to go into your pocket and to share. So what we're doing, in fact, is that we're depriving ourselves of the benefit. And what the Imam is saying here is very similar, but it's really interesting because the example that he uses is the sun. He says that because the sun is light in itself, because what's the essence of the sun? It's a light-giving body. But in itself, it's also light, right? That it wouldn't be a sun if it didn't emanate light, if it didn't share its light. We wouldn't call it that, right? And so what the Imam is saying is that if one has truly benefited from his knowledge, he will be as the sun, light in himself and giving light to others. You have no choice in the matter. Meaning, if you've really benefited, you're like the sun now. You're a piece of light that's enlightening others. It's a consequence. They're almost sort of the same thing in one way, that if you've realized benefit in a proper way, you will become someone who's mutafaddil. Now, and this stage, the fourth stage, is what the Imam refers to as the greatest of all stages. Because if you look at the ones which come prior to this, the stage of earning and becoming independent and then potentially benefiting, is that these three stages could, if we're not careful, be in fact weakening the possibility of the fourth stage occurring. How's that? Because acquiring wealth takes time and it can distract us and we can become too involved in the idea of acquiring wealth, and we've never moved beyond. We've actually reached ghina, but we're more focusing on the acquisition than the independence, even though we have the independence now. Right? An example or an analogy or the parallel of that would be that you studied the fiqh of salah, and then you do it again, and again, and again, and again, and again, and you never stop. There's no need for you to do it. You've done it. It's the same thing for someone who's earning money and they don't need any more. Let's go and do more. I have enough now to keep myself. No, but I want to help others. You just make excuses. There's many others that I need to, share in my wealth. It never happens. You never end up sharing. But it's the excuse that are our subtle conceptions of what we think is out there. We delude ourselves. And we add another half to our portfolio, but nothing's changed. So he's saying that these earlier stages could in fact be also weakening the possibility of the fourth stage occurring, because acquiring wealth takes time, effort, hard work, perseverance. Reaching the stage of independence, right? It allows you to taste a degree of independence. It allows us to understand that we don't need to rely on other people anymore. But it can also be that we can become afraid that we may lose that stage. And in the fear is, what's it going to do? The fear is going to drive us back, not forward. Because when you get to independence, we should be looking forward to benefit. But the Imam is telling us that fear will prevent us from going forward. In fact, it's going to make us go back. Because we're afraid that, I don't want to lose this independence, so I need to go back and earn more and earn more and earn more. Right? So of the four categories, the Imam says that the mutafaddil is the greatest category, and it's this fourth category now, the greatest category into which this discussion falls, the murshid al-muallim, the guide that's also the teacher. Now, the first duty that the Imam tells us that's incumbent upon a teacher here, and don't think that this is just people who are teaching the ʿUlum. Every one of us is a teacher in some way, and these apply to all of us in some sense. That the Imam notes a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ says that إِنَّمَا أَنَا لَكُمْ مِثْلُ الْوَالِدِ لِوَلَدِهِ. I am to you as a father is to their child. Walad in Arabic means a child, not a boy. Right? In classical Arabic. That I am to you as a parent is to their child. No? And the reason, or what the Imam is trying to say, the intent here is that it's almost saying that the function is to save one from the horrors of the next life. Yani the potential horrors, which are more important than a parent saving their children from the fire of the dunya. That in this sense, the responsibility of the muallim is greater than the responsibility of the parent. I mean, that's again a very counterintuitive thing, isn't it? Well, hold on, I bring them into this world and I provide for them, I clothe them, I feed them, I raise them, and you're saying to me that the teacher is more important. Let's establish the frame. Why? Because what's the purpose? What's the frame that we're meant to be thinking about here? The idea is that the Imam is saying that the parents bring a child into the transient world. The parents bring the child into the transient world. Already that's fraught with danger. What does a muallim do? The teacher takes the child out of the world. Look at the beautiful symmetry of the idea. The parents bring the child into the world, and it's the function of the teacher to take him back out of it. Now, they bring the child into the world, a transient world, and the teacher takes the child out of the transient world into the permanent world. Now let's look at that frame. Which one's more important? It's a rhetorical question. That doesn't need an answer because everyone gets it. Yeah, that makes sense. But initially, when we think about it, it seems really odd. How can a teacher be more we're not talking about the role or because we know that the parent has a status in Islam, that whenever parents are mentioned in the Quran, they are always mentioned after La ilaha illallah wa bil walidaini ihsana. That's how it is all. Allah mentions His Tawheed, and then He mentions and be good to your parents. So nothing can replicate the parents in that sense, but we're talking more about a broader function. Now, and so one of the great signs of a muallim who is a murshid is that his students love one another. If you see a shaykh whose students write, loggerheads, it may not be the fault of the teacher, of course, but it's a sign. The Imam's telling us that a sign of a great teacher is that the students love one another, and not just that, but they help each other. Right? Look at Habib Umar's students. I mean, they understand what it means to work together. Why? Because their Shaykh has inculcated. Our Shaykh has inculcated that this is how it works. Now, if we take it differently, that's on us, not on the teachers. And because the idea here is that the Shaykh has inculcated in his students that the Akhirah is vast enough to encompass all of us. It's so big. We don't need to, when envy comes in, or enmity sometimes comes in, it does so because we realize that the focus is on the dunya, and the dunya has limited seating. Two can't sit here, only one. And if I'm wanting to compete for this seat here, what am I doing? It's envy, because I'm wishing that what this person has doesn't have and I have it instead. But if the students understand that it's the akhirah that's been inculcated, there's plenty of seats for everyone. Right? In fact, you're so happy. And I remember once Shaykh Abdul Rahman, who's the son of Murabit al-Hajj, Allah yarhamuhu, and you know them, their understanding of fiqh is just oceanic, vast. They know they probably forget more in one day than I've ever memorized. That's no exaggeration, right? And so I remember once someone was with him, and they asked a question in fiqh to someone else. Now he can sit there and say, hold on, I'm an imam in the school of Imam Malik. It didn't bother him in any way. Why? Because the idea is that the question has been answered. It makes no difference where it comes from. But if I'm going to make it about, it can only come from me because I'm the imam, that's when the issue arises. And you see that with the great ulama, that they have this understanding. Now, and then the Imam says, right at the end of this particular duty, that those who study for the sake of acquiring positions of authority, they are not included in Allah's statement, إِنَّمَا الْمُؤْمِنُونَ إِخْوَةً, that believers are brothers. So if you're competing with one another, and your goal is not the akhirah, you don't fall under this statement, because you've not realized the duties of brotherhood, which incidentally is also a book in the Ihya ʿUlum, the duties of brotherhood. The second duty of the teacher is that he follow the example of the Prophet ﷺ. The first thing he mentions here is that he shouldn't ask for payment for his teaching. Again, just to make that clear, in fiqh it's not impermissible for you to take money for teaching. But the awla is that you don't. You teach for the sake of Allah. That's it. And not just that he shouldn't even expect gratitude from people. No. In fact, especially the Imam says that a true teacher shouldn't even stop to consider that there is even such a thing as gratitude from the students. you're waiting for everyone to give you thanks. Because it should be that you've given and you've walked out. That's the exact word that the Imam uses in this chapter. That it shouldn't even be a frame that gratitude is something that we want from our students. No? That the reason why he says that is because they are the ones that you should be grateful for. Why? Because they've come to you with fertile hearts so you can plant the seeds in there. So who should be grateful in this relationship? You as the teacher. No? Again, very counterintuitive ways of looking at things, but it's about setting frames. Now it's a separate thing that from the student's perspective, that they show fadl as students as part of their responsibility, which is independent of the teacher. It shouldn't be a frame nor an expectation of the teacher that he expects from the students a form of gratitude. Now, tend not to like speaking about our teachers in that way, but just as examples, Shaykh al-Khalifa Ibrahim Ahsa'i from Ahsa in Saudi, Allah yarhamu, he passed away a couple of years ago. And he was one of the great muhaddithun of our age. And I used to go to visit, to read with him every morning. And he had a zawiya which was above his house. We're speaking about taking care of students. It was his house that he had made into a zawiya. And what I saw is that he everything that related to his students, he would take care of it. Their food, their clothing, their worldly affairs. And in addition to all of that, he would teach them as well. So one day I thought to myself, I'll do something which I thought was very smart. And we were about to start a new text, and I said, I'm going to go and buy the books and give them to everyone because you get the reward for everyone reading the books. So I did. I went to the souk, I bought the books, and I gave them to everyone. And I thought that Sheikh's going to really pat me on the back. He did pat me on the back, but not in that way. No. Immediately he said, give him the money for it. There was no concept that he saw it as his responsibility that he has to provide for you everything. There's no concept that a student comes in my majlis and I'm not taking care of him. And in fact, you'd go to the majlis as a guest even, and you'd come out with bags of dates and shawls and hats and pens and books, and you actually leave thinking, I must be quite special. There must be, because why would someone do that to you, right? And that's the quality of the true mashayikh, that they are like our parents, because they take care of not our worldly. And there's one of our teachers from Sham, from Damascus. He's one of the great teachers from the Mahad al-Fath, which is one of the great institutions of learning in Damascus for the Hanafis. And this is on a side. He had a madrasa, in addition to this madrasa, where 1,000 students were studying, and he was taking care of all of them. No one even knew. And so when I would ask them, you've come to, lives in Istanbul now, Allah yahfazuhu, their only concern was that they had to leave behind their students, those of them who couldn't make it. It wasn't that they left behind homes or cars or wealth, which they did. Never would you hear it from them. And when I once asked the Shaykh that, how do you feel about being in Istanbul? His answer was so beautiful. He said, the fact that I can live next to Sayyidina Abu Ayyub al-Ansari. His house was literally 300-400 meters away from him. He said, Ana bi jiwar Sayyidina Abu Ayyub. I'm right next door to him. Look at the frames. They've had to leave their home. No one wants to leave Sham. I've said this many times. If it wasn't for what's happened, I would never leave Sham. Ever. you can palpably feel that this is Allah's ard. Of course, all of the world is Allah's, there's no doubt. But there's something about Sham that you feel it's there. Then the Imam says that the teacher shouldn't withhold anything from his student. In a sense that he shouldn't, withholding here can be taken in more than one sense, that he shouldn't allow him to advance to subsequent stages of learning until the student is prepared. And likewise, he shouldn't hold him back once he is prepared. One of the things about being a good teacher is that you have to see your students as being transient members of your community. They're not supposed to be with you forever. That doesn't mean they're not going to love you and respect you and inshallah make dua for you. That's different. But if you're going to think that your students should only be sitting with you and only you forever, we've missed the purpose of what the educative process is supposed to be about. We're supposed to allow students to come into the gatherings, take from us, and sincerely hope that they become more knowledgeable than us. Otherwise, what we're doing, we're actually stopping the process of education. Because what we're saying is that you can't become more knowledgeable than me. You have to always be my student. Doesn't make any sense. And so, neither should we withhold and neither should we allow them to progress if they're not ready. And neither should we let the student engage in sort of subtle and complex aspects until they've mastered the fundamentals. You know, sometimes when a student's in the earlier stages, and they'll come across points of disagreement between the Hanafis and the Shafi'is, and they'll be having discussions about this, or points on complex theological points. That should be something which is discouraged. The focus should be just here, nowhere else. The fourth duty is, it's a really subtle point, it's beautiful, because it's part of pedagogy. That when a teacher attempts to deter a student from bad conduct, let's say they've seen something in a student that doesn't really, shouldn't be part of a student's makeup, that they correct the student by way of intimation, hinting and implying, never directly, telling them off or censoring them. Because again, he's such a deep thinker just on the aspect of this pedagogical aspect of teaching, that he says if you shout at a student, if you're not merciful towards them, what that can do is, firstly, it's going to take away the reverence that the student has for you as a teacher and for the process of knowledge. And secondly, it may in fact embolden the student to rebel. Because he's going to tell me off anyway. Right? So what, of course, just to make it clear, this is separate from your spiritual shaykh. Because sometimes those are different ways that the mashayikh of the tariq know. We're talking here about instructing in knowledge. And so the Imam is saying is that what we should do is we should teach students and draw them away from bad character, but just by hinting and implying. Never directly. Because he says that the pedagogical function of this is that bright minds will be able to draw out the meanings from what you're actually trying to say. So you're actually inculcating and cultivating their reasoning skills. What a beautiful way of understanding it, isn't it? Never say someone, don't do that, but in a very sort of subtle, distant way. Right? One of my beloveds was Maulana Zain. He said one of our mashayikh and the students, he liked sleeping a lot. And so, he didn't want to tell him directly that, look, that you shouldn't sleep too much. And in Urdu, he said to him, "Sona mardon ke liye haram hai." Which in English, in Urdu, means Sona in Urdu can be understood as sleeping or gold. And so gold is haram for men. So he said, gold is haram for men. Now, if he was attentive to that, he will pick up the dual meaning of what's trying to be said, right? But that's the whole point, that you're actually nurturing. And what the Imam is saying is that when a student gets that, it will make him doubly happy. Why? Because he'll see that, look, subhanAllah, he actually loves me, he's not telling me off. But secondly, that I actually got it. Right? So you're looking for those hidden meanings. In Arabic, the beautiful saying that al-fahim yafhamu bil-ishara, that the one who really gets things, you don't need to tell him anything. Just point it, in a very subtle way, they'll get it. Or what's the other thing? Other saying, which is arsil labiban wala ta'murhu. When you want someone to do something, you say, okay, look, when you're going to go there, make sure you do this. If you have to do that, you're sending the wrong person. You're sending the wrong person. The saying is, arsil labiban wala ta'murhu. All you have to do, if you send someone who knows what they're doing, just send them, they'll know what to do. That's an ambassador in a true sense. When they used to choose ambassadors, they didn't used to say to them, okay, when you go to the court of the Roman or the Persian courts, when you sit there, sit like this and speak like this, and no. They looked at the quality of an individual, they realized, they can comport, they'll know what to do, just let them go. Responsibility, it's micromanaging, which is an odd, I should maybe just, on the middle management has destroyed the world. It's this micromanagement, you're thinking, my God, what can you even do? Everything has to be done in this particular policy, process, protocol. Any form of autonomy or volition is almost taken away from you. Robots. Before the robots replace us, they're going to make us into robots. Now, the fifth duty is that this is really important. All of them are important, but the teacher shouldn't disparage other subjects. So for instance, if you're a teacher of language, you shouldn't disparage fiqh. If you're a teacher of fiqh, you shouldn't disparage hadith. No, it's just riwayah. It's one narration who was given. It's not really ilm. Very subtle ways of speaking and downplaying another science, someone else's achievements. In the muhaddithun, what they've done is memorization. That's what it is. Right? Or if you have a theologian who disparages fiqh, this is a secondary branch of knowledge. It's about validity of legal contracts. We speak about the attributes of Allah. You see how you're creating this idea in the mind of a student that, look, what we're doing is more important than what these other guys are doing. And so what we're actually doing is that we're creating a disconnect, not just from the sciences, because the sciences are actually all connected together. We're creating a disconnect in the sciences, but we're also creating a disconnect in the hearts. And this subtlety even comes about when, let's say, students are studying and very subtle digs, let's say it's the Shafi'is, and they'll say something about the Hanafis. These people, they say, in the bab of wudu, the ma musta'mal. And because the Hanafis have a particular position on that. They say, well, we can't use this water because it's not purifying. What should we do with it? Give it to a Shafi'i. Right? Those sorts of things are bad for the development of a student's mind. Why? Because we're teaching them in a very roundabout, subtle way that it's okay to make fun of other people. It's okay to downplay other schools, and it shouldn't be part of our discussion amongst each other. Even if it's sort of very light-hearted, you're prodding, your Hanafi friends or your Ash'ari friends or whatever it may be. You should never do that. That the student must be taught at the level of the student's understanding. You shouldn't pitch material that's beyond them. You shouldn't, and neither should you tell them that there are further complex discussions after this one. Because what you're doing is you're diverting their attention immediately to that complex discussion. Right? In fact, even yesterday, what did we say in this gathering? We said about the question on, I think, free will or something, and I said, look, we can't speak about that in public because look at the hadith. ما أحد يحدث قوما بحديث لا تبلغه عقولهم إلا كان فتنة على بعضهم. That one of you will speak about something that's not understood by some people in the gathering, and it may become a fitna for them. It's hadith. So we should only stay within the parameters of the understanding of a student. And this is a hadith where the Prophet ﷺ said that that the prophets, their way of teaching is that they teach according to the understanding of the people. Now, خَاطِبُ النَّاسِ قَدْرَ عُقُولِهِمْ. If someone has a high level, you speak to them at that level. Someone has a level that they're not quite there yet, then you have to pitch it and you raise them up. So these are certain of the duties that the Imam is speaking about. The final one of which, and there's one or two more, the final one of which I want to finish on is that the alim, the muallim, the murshid must act on what he knows. Because hypocrisy, even a child can smell it. We can attend lectures, because in that sense as parents we're all muallim. And we can attend lectures, and we can attend gatherings, we can attend retreats and conferences. And we've even studied books about not saying ill things about others. And because we think our children are 4 or 5 and they don't really understand, within our homes we backbite. Within our homes we speak ill of other people, thinking that children don't, and then we're telling them something else and we're teaching them. We've already created the disconnect. Because why? A child smells hypocrisy. It won't say it to you, but it will understand that it doesn't mean anything. It's okay for me to have a dual face. Our homes should be sanctimonious to any person. No person's name should be taken in vain in our homes. It's as simple as that. And as I said the first day, and I'll end on this point, we do not have to get on with everyone. There's going to be people that we just can't get on with. It's okay, it's not a big deal. In and of itself, that's totally part of human nature as well. But there's an adab of not getting on. Again, a very counterintuitive part. That someone that you don't get on with has rights over you. Because you think that your brothers have rights over you. But someone that you don't get on with has rights over you. One of those is that you don't speak about them. You have a good opinion about them, and when they're mentioned, you wish them well. That's it.
وجد بالنوال منه إلي